Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 20th episode of Crime Over Wine, the only podcast with head-scratching true crime stories that are just better over a bottle of wine. I'm your host, Liam Collins, and thank you so much for sticking with me over the last 20 episodes. It has been so much fun and so rewarding doing this podcast, but thank you for sticking with me through some of really bad editing mistakes and really bad recording hiccups, and I just really appreciate you all. So let's get to our guest co-host this week. My guest co-host is a former local news reporter and a true Florida girl hailing all the way from Miami. My guest co-host this week is Rachel Ellis. Hello, Rachel. How's it going?
Hey, Liam. How's it going? I'm doing well. I'm so excited to be on your podcast this week.
Oh, I am so excited that you're here, and I feel like I haven't seen you in so long, so it's so good to see you.
It's a grand reunion.
Yeah, it sure is. It really, really is. So Rachel is another one of my former student journalism colleagues. We first met at Elon University in Elon, North Carolina, TBT, where we were also co-anchors together too for our morning student newscast way back in the day, Rachel.
Liam, so many memories, countless hours in that newsroom. I mean, thinking back, it's really where we spent our 4 years day in and day out. I have such fond memories of my time at ENN and especially anchoring ELN morning together. And those early wake ups were always just so worth it.
Yeah. And we were just talking about we both did mornings on in our full-time big boy and big girl jobs. And I do remember having a really hard time waking up for that 8 a.m. wake up call. And yet then it was my job to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning for several months, so that's great.
It was a little different. I think there were many times throughout my time as a morning reporter that I was probably waking up just naturally with my biological clock and how it shifted with the mornings around 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday, and getting up at 8 o'clock for the morning show in college was pulling teeth. So
yeah,
how times have changed.
Oh, how times have changed. So Rachel, let's transition over to our wine of the week. So this week we are drinking Underwood's Rosé, and Rachel, I do have to say my logic behind picking this wine this week is simply because I wanted to drink a rosé. So it's from Oregon and has notes of peach, honeysuckle, and white strawberry. So what do we say we crack this bad boy open?
Absolutely delicious.
Let's go for it.
It is summer after all. Rosé.
It sure is.
Rosé season.
It sure is. Rosé all day. And I also it's been getting so much warmer the last few weeks in Chattanooga. And so I'm just rosé feels like a really good idea. But also Oregon, I've never heard of a Oregon being a wine country. I guess anywhere technically could be, but it's just I don't know. I think of West Coast wines. I obviously think of California. I
Absolutely.
don't think of Oregon.
Same here. I'm excited to, see what the verdict is on this Oregon wine, because I'm all about rosé. So any opportunity to indulge and talk about rosé, especially now that it's it's almost summer. It's so exciting, walking around, seeing people sipping on the rosé and being we've transitioned from the red wine. It's summertime.
Right. It's all about the seasonal wines.
Absolutely.
And rosé, summer equals rosé season. So Rachel, cheers to you. Thank you so much for
cheers,
coming on
Liam.
this week.
Thanks for having me. So excited.
Okay, and Rachel, I do have a little bit of a surprise for you. So,
oh boy. Boy.
So you want to go for it? Because I am I couldn't stop laughing about this the other day, and I think you're gonna. I feel like you probably know where I'm going with this.
I have a few things I'm tossing around upstairs right now, but I'm curious. I'm very curious.
I couldn't breathe when I finally found this. Okay, so Rachel, I went way back because when I was just reminiscing about our college journalism days, one moment popped out in my brain. I just had to play it on this podcast now that you're here. So are you ready for this?
Oh gosh, holding on tight. I'm ready.
Okay, let's go for it.
Welcome back to ELN Morning. So Rachel, tell me a little about how your day's
Liam and Rachel.
Liam, I've had a rough morning. I've had a rough morning. We know those Elon squirrels are absolutely crazy, but one came up, hit me in the stomach. I proceeded to keep on running. Yes. But it was kind of crazy. I'm okay. Yeah. But it definitely shocked me. At orientation, they tell you these Elon squirrels, they have a mind of their own. They're absolutely crazy, but it happened.
Yeah, they're a little traumatized.
I'm a little traumatized, but I'm happy now. I'm okay.
Oh my God.
Well, the good news is no squirrels outside on Citron Plaza, but we do have Maya Eaglin with some more weathers and our more details on our.
What a transition, though. We landed on our feet. We landed right on our feet. Gold. Wait, okay, so I also have to like because I was remembering like we thought that was so good like right before we were doing that, and everyone behind the scenes was like, move on, like get this out of our TV screen.
Literally what I was thinking right now, like we knew at the time, like I knew at the time what I was saying was just like completely ridiculous and out there as you know, as one does.
Oh my gosh.
But I think I probably thought it was a good transition. And like, I'm sure I was like, yeah, we
definitely did.
Not
only did we think it was a good transition, we thought it was a great transition, Rachel. We were like, yeah, we're like, you know, we're like, let's go for it. Like, yeah, Rachel's got a squirrel. Like, let's like launch at her stomach today. Like, let's go for that. That'd be great weather cross dog. Like, no, it wasn't.
Let's go out to our Maya Eaglin, who's outside with the weather. Maya,
and you know,
tough.
I was dying because like Maya did not have an IFB in, so like I'm just like she has no idea what just happened like right before that. Man,
that is. Thank you for blessing me with so that video because and I can attest that took you like that was some heavy research because those like individual clips are so hard to find. Yeah. Those like little nuggets, those gold nuggets from ELN Morning. So amazing.
Man.
Hysterical. Thank you for the laughs. I'm going to send that to everyone I know now.
I needed that for sure.
Me too.
Oh man. Rachel, I was dying when I found that. Okay. All right. Well, let's my serious face.
Oh man.
Because all right. Well, Rachel, I think that we should take a little bit of a hard transition and go right into our story of the week. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's dive right in.
The story I want to tell you this week is a reminder that love should never make you feel hurt or scared, and it certainly never should cost you your life. A young woman with ambition and her entire life ahead of her to make those dreams come true sees all of the signs of an unhealthy and toxic relationship, but is blinded by the love she thought she was feeling in between. Today, I want to tell you the story of Emma Walker and the holes in the wall. On November 21st, 2016, around 6 a.m, Emma Walker's mother goes into Emma's bedroom to wake her up for school. Emma went to bed pretty late the night before, around midnight, so she wanted to make sure that she wasn't going to accidentally sleep in like any good mom would. So she goes into Emma's room and gently tries to shake Emma awake, but she doesn't stir at all. So she shakes her a little bit more, whispering her name gently, trying to wake her up, but she still isn't moving. A few moments later, and Emma's mother realizes that something is definitely wrong with Emma. She's not responding to her at all, and she checks her pulse to find out that there is none, and she immediately calls police. When police arrive, they find the same scene that Emma's mom discovered. This beautiful, blonde young woman tucked in her bed, appearing to be in a deep sleep, but instead of being asleep, she's there, lifeless, dead. Emma has no known medical conditions that would cause her to die in the middle of the night, and so police originally believed that Emma may have taken her own life. But the more that they look around her room, the less sense that seems to make. There are no pills around that she may have used to overdose, and no major method of suicide sticks out like at all. Like there aren't any major injuries that investigators would typically see to trigger a manner of death of suicide.
Jeez. Liam, that's devastating. I have so many thoughts. The fact that there aren't any wounds or any sort of immediate triggers that suggest she harmed herself or was physically harmed, by another person makes me think maybe she was poisoned.
Yeah, well, it's kind of complicated, and also like no visible wounds. So
no visible wounds.
Get there in just a second.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Let me clarify. I should have specified. No visible wounds.
Yeah, well, and it's really easy to do that because, and again, you're going to see why that's like, it's really kind of bizarre. So hold that thought. Definitely hold that thought because you're onto something there.
Okay,
definitely,
thought
for
hold.
sure.
Held.
Well, so they keep looking around the room, and that's when they notice a small hole in the wall right next to her bed. And Emma's bed is kind of like catty-cornered right up against two walls in her bedroom. So kind of like if you would imagine, Rachel, like the head of the headboard of the bed is kind of like in the corner, and like that's where she's sleeping every night, right? And that hole just looks odd. It's fresh. And then they look around even more and notice a second hole. And that's when they take a closer look at Emma's body, and they notice a small but clearly lethal bullet wound right behind her left ear. And immediately it is clear that Emma died from that gunshot wound, and that gunshot must have come right through one of those holes in the wall.
Wow. Okay. Well, I retract what I previously said. Really scary. Curious how and when this occurred in this bedroom.
Yeah, like a little weird, but like the most bizarre part of this whole thing, at least to me, is when they move Emma, they find the smallest amount of blood on her pillow near where her left ear was. And it's kind of hard for me to imagine that a bullet wound to the head could only have produced like an amount of blood that was initially overlooked by not only Emma's mom, who like obviously knows that room so well and also knows Emma so well, but also to trained investigators. So that I think is odd, but I guess that is what it is.
Agreed. I mean, that's what was standing out to me as well. How are we looking at a small amount of blood when we have a potential gunshot wound to the head?
Yeah, right to the head. So outside of the house, and I mean right outside of Emma's bedroom, police find even more evidence of this targeted shooting. They find 2 spent shell casings and 1 live round in their yard.
So do you think it was like a drive-by shooting or an accident?
Well, not exactly. In fact, Emma's mother knows it was no accident. To her, it screams a targeted attack because the way the bullet holes are angled, whoever did this had to know exactly where Emma would be sleeping and exactly where she would have had her head positioned. Whoever fired those shots had to know exactly where Emma slept every single night, and she has a really good idea of who killed her little girl. She tells police that she is confident it was Emma's ex-boyfriend that shot Emma through the wall twice. And she knows that because of what happened between them over the last few weeks.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, let's go back a bit, Rachel, first, because the beginning of this so-called teen romance is just as strange as how it ends. Our story this week truly begins right up the road from where I am right now in Knoxville, Tennessee. That is where Emma and her family live. And in 2016, Emma really seemed like this all-American girl, almost out of a movie. Emma was 16 at the time and truly had everything going for her. She was an honor student, volunteered at the local animal shelter, had dreams of becoming a NICU nurse, and was on her high school's cheerleading team. And again, just like in the movies, she was dating a boy on the football team. Riley Gaul was 2 years ahead of her in school. When Emma met Riley, he was a junior and she was a freshman. Friends say Riley wasn't just some dumb, typical jock. He was a funny, intelligent, and charming young man who loved video games, and he was a little nerdy too. Emma's parents at first really liked Riley. They found him kind and well-mannered and saw him treating Emma really well, and their daughter was happy, so what issues could they really have with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a picture-perfect Cinderella love story right there. Or high school romance.
Yeah, and if you look at them too, I mean, they are again, you say picture perfect. I mean, they looked like every single couple in high school, right? That everyone wanted to be. Everyone was envious of them. You just know it. And so yeah, so it's kind of, I mean, again, I know the rest of the story, so it makes me extra sad. But obviously we know how it all ends, and so it is kind of upsetting. But a bit into Emma and Riley's relationship, some red flags start to pop up. For starters, it's the story that Emma's friends start sharing about Emma and Riley's relationship. They say that when Riley met Emma, he already had another girlfriend.
That's definitely a red flag right there. And something that
biggest one.
Biggest one, and something, why was he getting involved with with Emma.
Yeah, so instead of breaking up with that girl to date Emma like, any normal person would, he just continues to date the both of them. Riley apparently promised Emma that he would break up with the other girl at some point, but he never did. Instead, he devised this plan to take both girls to their high school prom. Riley would take this other girl to prom his junior year, since apparently they had already planned to do that, and then Riley would take Emma to prom his senior year. Emma, wasn't totally okay with this plan, but her friends told Dateline that she went along with it because, she still really liked Riley, and he was nice to her, and he figured he would do the right thing eventually.
Or maybe she had hope, or faith that he would.
Yeah, and again, we go back to picture perfect relationship, right? I mean, she's a very pretty girl, but he's also a very, for an 18-year-old, I suppose, a very attractive young man. And so, yeah, I could see, I guess, how this girl, again, very nice to her, I can see how he, could have, enthralled her, and, she just wanted to be in this relationship because everything felt right? And, that's, it felt like it was going in this right direction. There was just, this minor, I guess, speed bump for the relationship to overcome. But, it's never that simple, right?
Never that simple.
Yeah. And so as Emma and Riley's relationship progressed, it got more and more toxic. Emma's friends told Dateline that Riley had become more and more controlling of her. They said he wouldn't let her do certain things and wouldn't let her hang out with certain people without him. And she didn't like this side of him, but she still loved him and went along with his demands for that reason, assuming that was how he showed her just how much he cared for her. The couple was constantly fighting, though, and constantly breaking up just for Riley to apologize and beg for her back, telling her that he was sorry and he was just angry and loved her dearly. And it was at this point that Emma realized how much she loved the caring, loving side of Riley and not the angry, bad, ugly side of him. And she would believe him and take him back over and over and over again. And Rachel, I just feel the need to pause here, right, and say that is a telltale sign of domestic abuse, especially in teenagers. And, that is screaming all the signs here for me at this point.
No, absolutely. And I just keep going back to the fact that this is a young girl, but this is something that happens in relationships with people in their 50s or 60s or 70s. This is
absolutely
not just specific to teenage relationships, but, it also tugs the heartstrings that much more, of course, in all scenarios, but especially with a teenager not having that maybe self-confidence or wherewithal or experience to know that what was exactly going on.
And I was just about to go there too. She probably didn't know what a relationship is supposed to be like, right? And so that is kind of I mean, I guess I could see if this was her first real relationship, right? I mean, they dated for a year or two. That that she sees him wanting to be with her all the time as romance, it's just, I don't know, that is not what it's supposed to be and so it's just, again, and again, I know all this from hindsight, but just so I can't imagine what she was thinking, in her shoes, at this point, but it's just not, it's not right, and so, it can be really easy to miss too, right, but it's so common among teenagers, especially these days, as there are more and more ways for people to know what you're doing, where you're doing it, and who you're doing it with. Mary Cunningham wrote for George Mason University that more than a quarter of women and about 1 in 6 men reported their first case of domestic violence or toxic relationship behavior before they were 18. Mary wrote out the top 10 signs of domestic violence in teenagers, but also in any kind of relationship, like you were saying, Rachel. So I was wondering if you would be able to read these signs for us that Mary wrote out.
Yes, absolutely. So using insult, intimidation, or humiliation, extreme jealousy, insecurity, or controlling behavior, isolation from friends and family, unwanted sexual contact of any kind, explosive temper or unusual moodiness, constantly monitoring social media activities or location, invasions of privacy or showing up unannounced, leaving unwanted items, gifts or flowers, abusing alcohol or drugs, or threatening or causing physical violence, such as scratches or bruises.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at through these, and most of these we're going to get to, but he checks the list on almost every single one of these, and like maybe even more that like weren't, you know, made publicly available.
Just so sad, so scary. And I mean, I just have chills thinking about what she went through.
Yeah. And, you know, we say all of that to say that Emma's relationship was showing early and obvious signs that Riley was being controlling toward Emma and not loving her. So if you see these kinds of signs in your own relationship or in a relationship that involves someone you love, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. And we're also going to put that number on our website and in our show notes. Okay, let's get back to the story. So Emma and Riley's relationship was clearly not the healthiest, but it's also easy for us to say that as people who never met Emma or Riley and have the benefit of years worth of hindsight. But Emma's closest friends and family were seeing this too, and they warned Emma that Riley just isn't good for her, and with a healthy and respectful distance, advised her to break up with him and break up with him for good. But it wasn't until Emma's parents found some concerning messages on Emma's phone that they feel the need to step in themselves.
Hi, Crime Over Wine listeners. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Heather. Now we know how much you love Liam's expert research and professionalism.
Over at the Wine Time podcast, you'll get the same expert research, but definitely a lot less professionalism.
We cover all things mom, including mom crimes. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
So, Rachel, I do have to say, so, like, this is, like, checking every single box in terms of rosé for me. This is, like, very, very light rosé for sure. And it also has, like, you know, because I don't like sweet wines. I don't like, not even in rosés. And so this, I really feel like I could, like, go for this. And the reason I don't like sweet is because, especially with rosés, it sits in my stomach like all sorts of weird. I'm not sure if you can agree with that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's all about listen, Liam, we're not getting any younger either. So it's like the next the next day, true. Those like sweet wines, it's like, oh, you feel them.
Listen,
you feel them a little bit more.
I do remember in college, like, you know, down in the barefoot, and like that was what we went for. You know what I mean? And so like, but like I would wake up the next day and like go to like an 8 a.m. class, and like now, like, oh my gosh, like I'm probably gonna be hungover like on this one glass of wine. Like, who are we, Rachel?
No, it happens so quickly. And speaking of barefoot, it's like that's. Honestly, just saying it, I'm like, I can't even stomach it anymore. It's like, oh boy, like the so really mega bottles. But rosé, I feel like I transitioned to rosé post college, when, you know, would drink with my roommates, like just hanging out, having a glass of rosé. And so there's like some
at a legal age, of course.
Yeah. And so I agree. I feel like there's like a maturity to a rosé, but also we have to stay away from the really sweet ones that are gonna get us the day after.
So true. And like I feel like now like a good glass of rosé is like really great for like, you know, the brunch with the girls kind of thing. And so like that's really the direction I'm going in. So yeah, but like, you know, and I feel like now my wines have like a very distinct use. Like I like am like sitting at home, like watching like Love is Blind, like with my little glass of Cabernet, and like that's it for me. But like, you know, out at brunch, like the rosé is coming out.
It's
and
flowing.
Like, you know, I'm gonna feel it the next day.
Yes.
The rosé is flowing. I'm gonna feel it, but it's coming out.
It is rosé all day for a reason.
Yeah, it is, because it's supposed to be during the day. And so
drinking it all day.
Yeah, right, exactly. The whole bottle.
Safely.
So yeah, safely. All right, well, let's get back to the story, Rachel, because it's that's a really like hard turn. So
I'm bracing for this. It's already tough to hear, tough to take in.
Yeah, it's about to get even tougher. So like, you know, brace yourself for sure.
Okay.
So for one reason or another, Emma's mother looks through Emma's phone one day and finds some truly unhinged messages from Riley via Snapchat, and I mean unhinged. In those messages, Riley appears to be back to his old tricks and of losing his temper and taking it out on Emma, but this time in an act of aggression none of Emma's friends and family have ever seen from him before. I hate you, Riley says. I hate everything about you. You're dead to me. I'll check the obituary. Fuck you.
Goodness. Yeah, that language and the intensity of what he said is definitely a reason for any parent to want to jump in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I'll check the obituary. Like, you don't say that to anybody, like, let alone like someone you're supposed to like care about. Like, oh, that gives me chills.
Yeah.
And especially like I mean, again, like knowing what we know now, it's like, that is pretty incriminating. Again, like this happens like much, much, much earlier on than like, than the, where we started the story at, but it's still like not a good look. It's just, I don't know. Just, I mean, not something you say for like any reason, but like specifically like looking back and like from a criminal investigation standpoint, like, yeah, someone who says like, I'll check your obituary, like, yeah, you're probably gonna be the first person I look at as like a murder suspect.
Absolutely. And, you think about, we both have worked in the news world, and I think about all of the police reports that I've spent time reading. And there's usually some sort of turning point in the case where there's, you're obviously marked as a suspect, but not only that, it's like, there was something unhinged going on here that didn't seem right at the time, and especially doesn't seem right after we see these various cases unfold. And for me, this is that. Yeah, I'll check though, but something's wrong. Something's not right.
Yeah, well, and it makes me wonder, like, not that it makes it okay, like, regardless of what the background is, but like, I'm wondering, like, what that fight was about, like, what was going on, like, in their relationship, but also what was going on with him. Like, was he going through something? You know what I mean? Again, it doesn't make it right, like, regardless, but I want to know a little bit more about like what was really truly going on behind the scenes besides just these messages. Only because I feel like it would give good context to like if they're fighting about like something really specific. Like, I want to know what the trigger was is all.
Definitely. And exactly, like, it doesn't change what was said, but I would be curious as well. Like, what was this just what was this about? Was it just, was it high school drama? Was it something a little bit more layered than that? Again, doesn't change what was said, but just, what could possibly propel somebody to say those words to somebody else, let alone their significant other?
Yeah, and I guess I wonder, the reason I want to know, like, what the background was like, if it just came out of nowhere, if it was, like, something, like, really insignificant, and, like, he's really having, like, some sort of mental break at this point, because, like, I think that points you in, like, one direction, or if it was, like, a really intense fight, you know what I mean, and, like, their relationship was, like, truly, like, that kind of intense and toxic, or if he really just, like, had something up there that just, like, made him go off. Like, again, doesn't change it, but it just makes me want to know, like, to like know what more about what their relationship was truly like on the inside.
Absolutely. I'm having the same thoughts.
Yeah. So as soon as Emma's parents see these messages, they go to Emma about them, and they tell her again that Riley is not good for her, and that this is not what love looks like or what it's supposed to look like. They ban him from their house and take away Emma's phone to cut off the line of communication with him. Although apparently Riley did not like not being able to get in touch with Emma, so he ends up giving her an iPod Touch so that they would still be able to talk to each other.
Yeah, that is also probably maybe something that should not have happened.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Because that screams to me like not being able to handle, like not being able to get in touch with her that much.
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
Heebie-jeebies. No.
So much. So Emma continues to see Riley, and the two finally go to prom together right before Riley graduated from high school. And by the fall, Riley goes off to college about 25 minutes away from their hometown. He continues his football career as the wide receiver at Maryville College, but it wasn't long after that Emma sees some things that she just doesn't like. She finds some pictures of him with some girls at college around Halloween, and with the physical distance they have, she finally seems to muster the courage to end things with him, and this time seemingly for good. She breaks up with him around Halloween.
Okay, so she's found the courage. It's taken some time. I'm curious if this sticks. I'm still hung up on that. Is this for good?
Well, we're about to find out. So Emma finally starts acting like her old self again, according to her parents. She's leaving her room again, eating dinner and socializing with her friends and family. It really starts to feel like they have their little girl back after she was taken away from them by this monstrous young man whose only goal seemed to be to keep the best parts of Emma for himself and to strip away the parts of her that he simply didn't like. But Emma's newly rediscovered freedom seemed to be pretty short-lived. That's because just a few few weeks after Emma broke up with him, Riley started taking some pretty drastic measures to get her attention again. On the night of November 18th, just a few weeks after Emma had broken up with Riley, Emma was at a small party at a friend's house. It was about 11:30 at night when Emma starts getting some messages from an anonymous number. And Rachel, once again, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to read what these messages say.
Yeah, so that one says, "Go to your car with your keys. Go alone. I've got someone you love. If you don't comply, I will hurt them." Another explicitly incriminating and dangerous response from Riley.
Yeah, yeah. So at this point, she doesn't necessarily know that it's from Riley.
Yes,
so keep that in mind. So
Anonymous number, but like you're on the right path. So, yeah, but pretty much right away, though, Emma has a pretty good feeling that Riley is indeed the person behind these messages, maybe because she has a good hunch, but more than likely it's because Riley had tried to do something similar before to try to get Emma's attention, right? But this time, it was simply not going to work. She took a group of her friends and walked out of the house to see what was going on, and there, they see Riley face down in a ditch, and that when they walk up to him, he tells them that he had been kidnapped and hit in the head, so he couldn't remember anything about what had just happened to him. That's fishy in itself. Many questions right there. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of keep them to myself for now, but how did Emma respond to this?
Yeah, well, she doesn't believe him at all. She knows this is just one of his weird tricks to try and get her to take him back. And she probably has some choice words toward him, tells him to leave, and she and her friends go back and enjoy the rest of their night. But the very next day, things begin to escalate even further. Emma spends the night at her friend's house, and the next day she's driving back home and sees this man walking down her street. Now, she's kind of side-eyeing him because he's dressed in all black, head to toe, and walking right toward her house. She gets back to her home and locks herself inside, getting this weird feeling about this mysterious man, and her gut instinct is right because that man walks right up to her house and starts ringing her doorbell over and over and over again. Now, Emma is home alone at this point, and freaked out beyond belief over this strange man. She starts texting all of her friends, terrified, saying she thinks she's about to die. Like, that's how scared she is about this. And at this point, she maybe starts rethinking how she looked at what happened with Riley the night before. Maybe there was really this guy out to scare the crap out of her by any means necessary. So she texts the only person she can think of to come and protect her, and that person is Riley, her tall, older, football-playing ex-boyfriend. It must be able to protect her, right? She texts him saying, "I hate you, but I simply need you right now." And he replies saying, "I'm coming. I'm speeding. Just give me a minute." And just a few minutes later, there he is to save the day. But by this point, the mysterious guy dressed in all black is gone.
Initial thoughts are the immediacy and like the quick response from Riley is suspicious. Especially given his track record and his history with her.
Yeah, and I guess, like, I could see kind of, like, both directions of this. Like, sure, like, 2 nights in a row, like, again, someone you're supposed to care about, like, you know, like, 2 nights in a row, like, this weird things happen, you know, he swears that, you know, no, like, this is real, like, this is what's really happening, like, I'm here to protect you. But on the other side of the coin, like, he has, like you said, this track record of, you know, really, like, insane things to get her attention and to especially when they're broken up, right? And like, you know, at this point he's clearly just unhinged and like, you know, really just wanting her back by any means necessary. And like, he certainly seems like the type of person to like fake a kidnapping and then also show up as a man and dressed in all black, like banging on the door to try to get her attention. But I mean, so anyways, I guess I kind of see like why she would want to call him. Like, I see like why, like, you know, if you're that scared and like, if you're like, if you're like believing this whole thing, I guess like, it can't be worse, right? It can't be like the idea of like, you know, falling for it can't be worse, hypothetically speaking, right, than the ulterior, which is that there actually is this guy like out to get her.
Exactly. And at this point she seems like she's scared for her life, so I'm sure she's grasping at straws. And you know, and I think there's also an element to even relationships that have they're abusive in nature, there's still some sort of attachment I'm sure she still feels to Riley. And so that's not going to go away overnight. So I'm sure she's still, emotionally leaning on him. And in this case, like wants his protection and backup. So, yeah, there's a lot at play here.
Yeah. Well, let's keep in mind too, like they were dating for 2 years before like at this point. So like, like that's a long time to be dating somebody, especially when I think she was 16 at this point. Like, man, yeah. So just a little while later, Emma's mom came home and was absolutely furious to see that Riley was at their house. She's yelling, telling Riley to get out. She doesn't care why he's there. He just needs to leave her house and leave her daughter alone. Emma tells her mom what happened that day and the night before, and she levels with her, saying, Emma, that mysterious man in black that was trying to scare her had to be Riley. It's the only thing that makes sense. He is back to his old tricks, trying to scare her into getting back together with him, and clearly his antics had gotten extreme and pretty dangerous.
So what does Emma think about this?
Well, Emma's mother appears to be able to get through to her, and Emma comes to her senses and she cuts off Riley yet again. The next day, Emma's parents are worried that Riley is going to try something extreme again, and so they follow Emma to and from work to make sure that she's safe. That night, Emma apparently had a long fight with Riley, and she blocked his number and also blocked him on all of her social media pages, a sign that she was finally trying to distance herself from him once and for all. Emma goes to sleep around midnight, and shortly after that, Emma's father hears a loud noise. He thinks it sounds like someone was in the house, maybe opened a door and slammed it shut. But he gets out of bed and checks things out. Concerned, he checks on his daughter, who appears to be fast asleep in her bed. Although we both know now, Rachel, that was not necessarily the case. As we mentioned, Emma's physical appearance was totally inconspicuous, so her dad goes to check on his son, who also appears to be fast asleep, and he goes back to bed with a clear mind, totally unaware that his life that he knew and imagined for himself and for his family was already totally and completely shattered.
Devastating. I mean, can you think of anything more traumatizing and awful for a parent? I can't think of anything.
No, and like, man, like this guy, like I can't imagine how he sleeps at night, again, like in hindsight, because like if he knew what had just happened, right? I mean, we don't know for sure, but like I'm assuming that like the loud noise that he heard was like the gunshots, right? And so like if he knew what had happened, like I bet you he wouldn't have just gone back to sleep, obviously. And so like I just don't know. Like, man, and I hate to even say this only because it sounds so like blamey, and like I obviously don't mean to come across that way, but like I can't imagine how you live with yourself after that, like knowing what like was right there, like literally moments away, like her, like his daughter's murderer,
Yes. And I think, just the idea or the possibility that the dad could have potentially stepped in and saved his daughter's life. And like you said, living with that, or caught the guy, or I don't know how you just said it very well. I don't know how you would live with yourself. And that's something that this poor family has already gone through enough and will continue to go through a lot. But that's just another layer to this. For sure.
Yeah, seriously, because at least, I mean, and just like, because I'm sure you feel the same way, like, with your experience, like, I've done like a murder or two, right? Like in terms of, that sounds weird. I've covered a murder or two. And so I always talk to the parents, and so they always feel like this, like a certain level of guilt, like even if like it's not really warranted. And so, like, this just feels like the most, tangible example of that, right? And, man, I don't know. I can't even talk about it anymore because it's, really, hurts my heart. It really does.
It's awful. And, I mean, you hear things that overnight, right? Like, I think I hear things out on the street. I hear if my neighbor shuts the door, and it's like, oh, okay, you just go to bed. But, you don't know necessarily exactly what each and every noise is. And for this dad, I'm sure he just thought it was just like any other night.
Yeah, well, as we know, it was not any other night. The next morning, Emma's mother found her dead, and the most extreme measures that they had ever imagined Riley may have taken had turned into a horrifying reality, and investigators turned their sights right away on the man who claimed to love Emma more than anyone else. Riley denied having any part of Emma's death. He starts posting on Twitter and Facebook, memorializing her and their relationship. "That's my beautiful Emma," he wrote. "Rest easy now, sweetheart." And when investigators question him, they initially see exactly what Riley wanted them to see, a grieving boyfriend who truly cared about Emma. Riley tells investigators that Emma breaking up with him had been tearing him apart. And the night Emma died, Riley tells them about that fight they had right before Emma blocked his number. He says that fight had really upset him because he wanted to be with Emma more than anything. After that fight, he tells investigators that he cried in his car for 2 or 3 hours outside of his dorm room 25 minutes away from Emma's house before he just went inside his dorm and went to bed. But the more investigators speak to him, the more they see a side of him they just didn't like. A side of him that Emma's friends and family had been warning Emma about for 2 years. They start seeing a dark side of Riley. They find it odd the way Riley is speaking about Emma. Sure, speaking fondly of her and their long relationship, but it's his word choice that really starts to stand out. He's not referring to Emma by name. Instead, he appears to distance himself from Emma and the crime by only referring to her as the girl.
It's extremely fishy. I think, we've been using the word incriminating. I think that's just another piece of this. It's like, well, how could you ever reference your ex-girlfriend, somebody who you once allegedly loved or had some sort of close partnership with or relationship with, reference them as the girl after they've died or been brutally allegedly killed. So it's pretty crazy. Interesting word choice for sure.
Definitely interesting word choice. And it's just, I don't really know how he thinks that that's going to go over. Obviously very circumstantial, right? I mean, you can't put him away just because he didn't use her name. But so this was, I thought was really interesting. And maybe I'm off base on this, but what he wrote on Facebook about her, rest easy now, sweetheart, that to me kind of stood out to me only because I feel whenever, when someone dies, right? I feel you post all about on Facebook, rest in peace, all that, that kind of word choice. Rest easy seems that to me stands out as trying to say that it was a suicide. That was how I read that, because I feel whenever I see someone saying rest easy, that's usually somebody talking about somebody who had taken their own life. So I don't know. What do you think about that? Because that's what stood out to me.
No, that's interesting. That's certainly interesting. I mean, I think it's something to definitely pay attention to. That you saying that
was their initial thought.
You saying that the is piquing my I'm curious if he's been that intentional and that thoughtful in his maneuvers post this incident, but if that is one of them, I mean, it certainly could be.
Yeah, and I never saw him intentionally say she must have killed herself at any point, but
it's subtle.
It's a very subtle, exactly, and especially considering again what we initially thought about Emma, that she may have taken her own life at first. Maybe he's really trying to play that up as somebody who allegedly probably knew her better than anybody else. That feels. Yeah, that just feels like the direction that's going in, but it could be totally off base. Maybe he truly just meant, rest easy, right? Rest in peace, whatever. That was just the word choice he used. It had no meaning whatsoever. Again, I'm a true crime lover. This is just how my brain thinks about things. But that, I don't know. That's just where my brain went.
Yeah, so I think I will also, you being a true crime lover, have the experience, and knowledge base of sometimes like how these things happen. So you got to pay attention to these little clues. And that's what investigators do when they're looking as well. So could be could be something to that for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know, let us know, like, if you're listening to this and, or let us know on our social media pages, write into us. Let us know what you really think about that, because I'm really curious to see if other people agree with me or if I'm just like totally off on that. So write into us, let us know. So police go to interview some of Riley's friends, who say that Riley has been off since Emma had broken up with him, and he has been showing some really concerning behavior, even apparently making a suicide attempt at one point. On November 19th, just 2 days before Emma died, and the day after Riley showed up at Emma's friend's house claiming to have been kidnapped, Riley's friends tell police that he told them that he was concerned about this alleged kidnapping attempt, and he stole Riley's grandfather's gun in order to protect himself. The suicide attempt had already happened at this point, so Riley's friends are really concerned that he now had a gun, which made him a clear danger to himself and also to others. And just a while later, Riley asks one of his friends if he knew how to get fingerprints off of a gun.
I mean, this just keeps getting more and more and more and more fishy and sketchy and not looking so good for Riley. I mean, asking how to get fingerprints off of a gun. Yeah. And there really isn't much else to say there. I just want to leave it at that.
Well, I don't mean to laugh, but like I do, only because it's like such a ridiculous question. I'm like, why do you mean how to get fingerprints off a gun? And also, why do you think I know how to do that? Like, wipe it down? Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't really. That's just a weird question to ask your friend, like, casually, right?
Well, I'm thinking, like, do his friends have experience in, like, forensics? Like, is this something, like, I mean, obviously, you just wipe, I mean, I assume you just wipe down a gun to get rid of the fingerprints, but, like, maybe there is some sort of way to, like, really get the residue off or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
I mean, Yes, like, I don't know I have always assumed that a gun is just made out of metal, right?
Right.
And so, like, I don't really think that there's, like, any special way. But, like, also, I don't know, like, this is Tennessee, and, like, you know, we love our guns down here, and so, like, I do wonder, like, if that, like, maybe, like, there are people who just, like, know that much about it, but, like, still, like, it's just... Like, what, like, why do you need the fingerprints off the gun? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess, like, he did just say that he stole it. So, like, okay. But, like...
Yeah, like, what kind of crew is he running with? I don't know. I have so many questions as well. And he's digging himself in such a deep hole. It's like, I'm having a hard time just, like, taking this in for him.
Yeah, well, and, like, having a hard time, like, I'm sorry, I really don't mean to laugh, but only because I, like, have a hard time, like, taking this seriously, because, like, what a ridiculous question to ask, like, especially, again, considering that we know that he's now, a suspect in a homicide, like, dude, like, I'm sorry, but bad criminal 101, like, that is just not what you, like... not the track record you want for yourself.
Doesn't
right?
take the sharpest tool in the shed to figure this one out.
No.
Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
I personally feel like if he just, like, never asked and, like, never wiped the fingerprints off, like, it probably would have gone a little bit better for him. Yeah. But, like, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Time will tell, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. So, if all of this wasn't enough, on November 22nd, the day after Emma died, Riley asks his friends if they would be able to help him get rid of that gun. He says he swears he had nothing to do with Emma's death. He would never hurt her, which is exactly why he wants to get rid of the gun. He says that he wanted to get rid of it because he didn't want police to find out that he had it and unfairly connect him to Emma's death. Well, the friends agree to go down to the banks of the Tennessee River to help their friend get rid of the gun. Riley brings them to his house to get the gun, and he comes out with a garbage bag. Riley says he just grabbed a full trash bag and put the gun inside. He has no idea what else is inside. But as the friends get to the river, the three of them are talking about how they're going to do this, and as the friends later tell 2020, Riley starts meticulously putting on gloves, and they open the garbage bag to find the gun. A 9mm Glock in black clothing, just like the clothes that mysterious man was wearing just 2 days before Emma died.
So we're really putting the pieces of this puzzle together here. Yeah. The whole thing with the garbage bag, And Riley starts meticulously putting on gloves and open the garbage bag to find the gun, a 9mm Glock. I mean, it's not looking good for Riley, as I said earlier. No. And why are they trying so hard to get rid of this gun? Why are they wearing gloves? Why like there's a lot of camaraderie and effort. It's almost like the friends know that something. It's like the elephant in the room, right? Like the friends are kind of just like, yeah, like let's help this guy, but we know he is up to no good. Why are they getting involved? Yeah. Why are they getting involved too? They should not be getting involved.
That's a crazy part of the story, so hold that thought because it's insane. So pause right there for a second, only because I have to say, so there are a couple more points I need to bring out. So the 9mm Glock, the same type of gun that the shell casings outside that matched the gun.
Yes.
So like that works there. The black clothing that we're talking about here, the same clothing that he was wearing, and like just happens to be in the garbage bag that he grabs. Like, no. Like, you know, that was an obvious attempt. Like the fact that he was just like, oh yeah, no, whatever. Like, I don't know what's in there. Like, yes, you did. Like, you were trying to get rid of like the other evidence that like you were stalking her, right? So yeah.
Careless at this point. So what happens now?
Well, the friends are getting ready to ditch this bag when suddenly a swarm of flashing blue lights flood the area. Police are flanking the car at every side and they rush toward them, guns drawn.
Whoa. So they knew Riley was going to ditch the gun that night?
Yeah, they did. And thanks to Riley's friends. They had their suspicions of Riley from the get-go and agreed to help Riley ditch the gun as part of this sting operation involved with the police. The boys were wired a camera hidden in the boys' key fob to their car, and they were texting police every single step of the way. And as soon as they had their eyes on the gun, they texted police their code word, who descended on the car to take Riley into custody.
Wow. Plot twist right there. Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm feeling a lot for just a completely devastating, awful, all synonymous words to describe this case. It makes me feel good that at least these friends were on the right side here of trying to deal with this. And I mean, I was really losing extra faith in this case, hearing that the friends were also participating in this nonsense. So good on them for getting involved with the police and doing the right thing.
Yeah, and like also like, man, so like these kids are like 18, right? And so I'm like, that's really brave of you.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
You know, because at any point, like, what if he caught on? Like, he has a gun. Like, oh my God, like terrifying. And like also apparently, like, I think they had like I saw, I believe, I'm trying to think of what it was. I believe it was Dateline or 2020, where they told them that their mom like knew that they were involved in this and like we're doing this sting operation, and like, oh my God, like I'm not even a parent, like that just gives me so much anxiety. Like I can't even imagine. Oh, I just can't even imagine. Like, you're literally in the car to go like potentially ditch a gun of like with like someone who is probably like just committed murder like literally the day before.
These kids are very brave, very, very brave. Mm-hmm. I'm picturing that, you know, happening to an adult. I'm not really sure how many people would be willing to put themselves at risk like that. So these kids were certainly courageous to get involved as much as they did.
Listen, Rachel, I just want you to understand that if you ever kill somebody, like, I will not be helping you ditch the gun, and I will not help them put you behind bars. I just want to be so clear about that. Not happening.
I do not blame you. I think that's honestly, like, I'm not really a gun person, so I don't really even want to be around a gun. So you know, I think let alone with somebody who's capable of the unspeakable. No, not good. So no hard feelings there, Liam. I won't be upset.
Okay, good. I'm glad we'll still be able to move on from that when you're in jail. So. So that's when police were able to definitively determine that the clothes in the bag matched the description of that mysterious man, and the gun matched the bullet casings found outside of Emma's home. And Riley is charged with first-degree murder, stalking, theft, reckless endangerment, and possession of a firearm during a felony.
Those were some serious charges. He's going to be facing some serious prison time potentially there, and you know, that's
big time.
yeah, that's a lot to unpack there, and rightfully so.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Because like, again, like just from our experience, like working in the field that we do, like I looking at all these charges, and I'm just like, they threw like everything except for the kitchen sink at this man, like, and like, that like the thought process here is like, if we're not going to get him on first degree murder, like we got him on stalking, we got him on theft, like we got him all this stuff, like this man is going to jail for something.
Absolutely.
Like, hell or high water.
Yeah. That usually you see these cases, people who are going to be behind bars for a very, very long time, potentially for life.
Yeah.
You see multiple charges at play here. So first degree murder was not going to cut it in this case.
No. And I was also wondering, the first degree murder charge makes sense, obviously. Stalking makes sense. Theft makes sense. The reckless endangerment charge is interesting to me. I'm wondering what that directly ties back to what evidence they have of that. Like maybe just
stalking. Stalking is a different charge. I have to look at that a little bit more. I'm not sure exactly how that reckless endangerment is defined by the law, but
I would think it would. Maybe just the fact that he was firing the gun into the house, maybe that would because that could potentially hurt somebody else or cause different kind of damage.
Yeah, so I think in a definition that I just found says that reckless endangerment is posing a significant risk of physical harm to others. So pretty broad brush there. But another thing I just found, the offense of recklessly engaging in conduct that creates a substantial risk of serious physical injury or death to another person. So certainly this case would qualify for that. But yes, interesting that they were able to tack on that charge on top of these others as well.
Well, and I'm wondering, so now I'm thinking maybe it was the fact that he had his asked his friends to help ditch the gun, even though they were in on it kind of thing, he still asked them to do it, that's still a charge.
Right point.
So and then I think possession of a firearm during a felony I think is pretty obviously ditching the gun. So yeah. So, keep in mind this sting operation is carried out just a day after Emma's murder. And now her ex-boyfriend, the man who claimed to love her more than anything in the entire world, was heading toward a trial for murdering her. At his trial, Riley makes a bit of an unusual plea. Instead of denying that he had any involvement in Emma's death, he instead says that he was indeed the person who fired the shots into her house that killed her. But he says he never intended for those shots to kill Emma. He just wanted to scare her. He says that he didn't think the bullets would travel through the wall and into her head. So his lawyer asks for his charges to be lowered to a misdemeanor charge of reckless homicide, which in Tennessee only carries a maximum sentence of 12 years.
So if this is true, if that's a true statement, which, we will never know, but it seems to me number one, we've used the word unhinged a few times in this podcast, in this episode, and it seems like Riley is in fact unhinged. And if he, quote, wanted to scare her, let's just put that's just unhinged is the only word that I can actually think of in this moment to describe that.
Right.
But it's the backpedaling that he's done. Of course, once he learned that, oh shoot, I actually killed Emma, is where he starts really digging his heels in, and it's almost like this little accident he's hasn't been able to take. Or not an accident, but this, this action he took that he didn't expect to be escalated to the extent that it did. It's he's now back. He's doesn't want to even take responsibility for his actions, and instead is just finding others to blame. And he's a liar. He's a narcissist. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah. And kind of what you what you just alluded to there. It's if you if this was really the truth to me, you would have said right off the bat, oh my gosh, I was just trying to scare her. I wasn't trying to kill her. Oh my gosh. Instead he denied having any part in it. So it's I don't really believe what you're saying because you lied from the beginning anyway. So I don't really. But I don't know, I guess I could see worlds because again, he was trying to scare her the whole time. You know what I mean? So it's okay, sure. Maybe that was your intention, but also I don't care, you still why is that even your intention? The fact that you fired shots into her house, even with the possibility that it could have hurt her, somebody in the house, like anybody, like that, like, I don't really care if that was your intention. Like it was still murder, and like you still did all these things. Like you shouldn't have done that to begin with.
Absolutely. There's no world in which, quote, scaring somebody with a firearm is acceptable. So the fact that that's even like his line of thinking is just, I wish I had the verbiage for it.
Normal to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So normal. I was just, quote,
God.
trying to scare her, please. You know, like scare me with a, I don't know, like, pop a balloon if you want to scare me. I mean, like we're not playing around with guns here.
With guns, yeah, and like a stolen gun at that. You know what I mean? Like that to me says first degree, like anything. You know what I mean? Like regardless, like you went out of your way to, like, even with the possibility of potentially hurting somebody, like you should have known better.
Absolutely.
And like also you didn't know that it was going to travel through the house. Like,
please.
What the fuck? Like, frankly, like, I'm sorry, but like, what did you think was going to happen? Like,
we know that bullets can travel through walls. We don't know how thin these walls are. We don't know. It could have flown through a window. I mean, just completely irresponsible. Honestly, I'm angry too, Liam. I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling rage. I'm feeling rage.
Seriously. Well, nobody luckily takes the bait on this, and his charges are never lowered. Instead, he is found guilty and sentenced to life in prison.
You know, and this is one of these classic examples, right? And we see them a lot in news, where there's, you know, you see justice, right? Justice must be served, or there's some sort of closure or peace for the family when the suspect or the person who's being charged in a case is facing the consequences at last. And this is an example of that, right? But at the same time, like, Emma is still dead, and her family has to live with the pain for the rest of their life. And so it's like, it's good, right? I'm glad that he was found guilty, but at the same time, it doesn't really change the outcome.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up, because I just wonder, like, what, like, Emma's parents think, because, like, these trials go on so long, right? I mean, like, you have, like, the preparation for them, and, like, this is something that her parents have to live through over and over and over and over again, probably day and night. And so, like, I do wonder, like, and I always wonder, and like again, this is probably just the true crime lover in me, because like the other part of me is like, I'd never want to even know the answer to this question, but like, I wonder if, like, when that is finally read, like that verdict is finally read and he's sentenced to whatever, like does that feel good? Like, does that feel like, what does that feel like? Does it feel relieved? Like, does it feel like, because like at the end of the day, like, you like, because like what you said, like, he's gonna go to jail, like that has to feel like a little bit of closure, but like you still go home and like Emma's still not there,
exactly,
you know? And so like, and you still have to think about like how could have things gone differently.
Exactly.
So
and I and I would just add that I think apart from the closure, it's just like the risk to others, right? Is like, maybe there's that semblance of safety or even retaliation.
Sure. This is never going to happen to any other girl ever again with Riley.
Because of Riley, and even peace for the family. I mean, if this Riley kid has some sort of vengeance, clearly for Emma, like what else does that look like for the family? So maybe just from like a safety and security standpoint, as well. There's a sense of closure there, but it really doesn't change. That's really the sad reality for these types of cases. It's like there's never really closure. I don't think that really exists.
Yeah. Well, Riley does end up trying to get a new trial, but fails because the judge says there isn't enough evidence to reverse his ruling. So Riley will sit in jail for at least the next 50 years. He will be 71 when he is eligible for parole.
Wow. So his life has taken a complete turn, right? And like, we think back to how you described him at the beginning of this case, where he was this jock, really good looking. He had a lot going for him. Like, I'm sure maybe college was on the horizon. Was he playing sports in college? I mean, he could have had this really fruitful life, and he chose an entirely other path. And you know what? It's a path he chose, and it's a path that really altered his life, but it also altered a lot of other people's lives. And so, in my eyes, it's a real shame. Shame's not really even the right word, but it's devastating. Like, that's the that's a choice he made, but he's going to have to live with it, and he's going to have to suffer the consequences, and he should suffer in jail.
Yeah, well, and that's why like they give out life sentences for these kinds of crimes, right? Because it's a life for a life. And so, you know, not only just with Riley, like I think about what Emma had to offer to this world, like she seems like such an exceptional young woman, right? I mean, she wanted to be a NICU nurse. Like that takes like an especially incredible human being to like want to do that. You know what I mean? Like not only just like fall into that, but like, you know, a nurse in general, but like let alone like that kind of challenging, part of healthcare, part of medicine, that like you're taking care of these like teeny tiny little babies. Like that takes that person with such a huge heart. Like she volunteered at animal shelters. Like again, anyone who's listened to this podcast for like more than 2 seconds knows like that is incredible. Like I value that so like highly than like anything else in the entire world. Like I love my shelter animals. And so like that was just like that, like for all of us, right? I mean, I think about like the ripple effect that she could have had on like the world if she was able to go out there and do all this good. And like that was taken away, not only for her to like be able to do that, obviously for her life and like not only for her family, but like for so many other people whose lives, like I can promise you she was going to change. I can promise you she was going to like absolutely change the world in more ways than one. And she never got the chance to. And that, I mean, that's why like I love talking about these cases, because I really feel like they need to be talked about, but I also hate talking about them at this point because it really like it takes away a little bit of the hope for these kinds of situations. So, just remembering Emma, for her family's sake, since Emma's death, they have discovered more about the life that she was living before it was savagely taken away from her. Emma's mother says that she got some letters after Emma died that detail the kind of person that Emma was when she wasn't watching. The letters are from parents of Emma's classmates who said that their daughters had been picked on over and over and over again, but their daughters told them that there was one girl in school who always stood up for them, and that girl was Emma Walker. Emma receives a dedicated dog park with her name on it, a reminder of her love for animals, and Emma's family has also since raised enough donations to name a room in the local children's hospital after Emma, since, remember, all that she wanted to do was care for premature children. And finally, Emma's school has set up a memorial scholarship in her name. It specifically goes to students who want to pursue a career in the medical or healthcare field.
Ugh, I'm sick. I feel actually like nauseous hearing that. And, I think you said this earlier, but she seems like somebody who really, really wanted to truly make a difference and an impact on people and bring a lot to the table and contribute to society in an amazing way. And it's just really heart-wrenching to know that she never had the chance to do that because of somebody who was
supposed to care for her,
who was supposed to care about her, and on top of that, somebody who was dealing with his own issues and his own anger and hatred, and decided to project that onto her and change her life and change her family's life. And I think this goes back to this like larger narrative too of like, it's and I'm not saying we don't know enough about Riley's background, but it's like making sure that people in our lives are getting the help that they need, because you just don't know how that could detrimentally change, obviously hoping that you could maybe, change their well-being as well. But what was it in Riley that just led him to be such a hateful, angry, violent person?
Yeah, and I think about that a lot too, and like in cases that I, cover, not on this podcast, like in my full-time job, but like also cases that I've even covered on this podcast that like, it does make me wonder, like for the suspects, benefit, I suppose, the perpetrator's benefit, like what, like was there one thing that really could have changed, that like somebody could have stepped in at some point and said, this, young man needs a little bit of help, this young man is off on a wrong path, like, or maybe those signs never showed up, right? I mean, before it was too late, like maybe those signs never showed up. And so like, but it still makes me think like, if somebody had stepped in at the right time, like would Emma still be alive? Like would everything be okay? Would the two of them be in love and like living happily ever after? Or would we be in the exact same spot? Like, I don't know. I can't even think about that way because like my brain will just go in circles and circles. But I mean, you have to, right? I mean, that's why like I try to like live my life in like a way that's like, being kind to like, everybody, no matter, because you never know what they're going through. And so that's, I think that's like, this is a great example of like truly just like, reaching out when things seem a little bit off, and trying to like, be kind to people just because.
Absolutely. And I mean, I totally echo what you said about just kindness, and you never know what kind of demons somebody's fighting, or you never know people have had different challenges in their life that shape, unfortunately, who they are at different points. Not, doesn't define them, but maybe there are, ways that they were brought up, or things that they were taught that they're still trying to like fight or battle and whatnot. And it doesn't excuse any sort of violent behavior, to be very, very explicitly clear about that.
Yeah, right.
But sometimes there are people out there who I'm sure who have committed heinous crimes who, who lack that sort of supportive environment, and also were put in situations where, they were almost, forced or felt like they had to live a certain life. Not saying that this was the case in this Riley situation, but, I do wonder what was going on behind closed doors in Riley's life. And again, I reiterate, does not change just how, disgusting his actions were.
Yeah. Well, and like also too, like on the flip side, like those signs may not have ever been there, right? I mean,
we don't know.
Those, like, it could have never been anything. But as for the signs of domestic violence, they can be obvious to see from the outside, like from where Rachel and I are sitting right now, but nearly impossible to accept from the inside sometimes. As often, those toxic traits can be softened with the "I really love yous" and the extra love you can get on the back end of those, toxic behaviors. But if you see those kinds of signs in your own relationship or in a relationship that involves someone you love, again, we're going to put that National Domestic Violence Hotline number on our website and in our show notes. That number is 1-800-799-7233. Well, that is all that we have for you this week. So, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. It is great to catch up with you, even over this like really tough case to talk about.
Liam, thank you so much for having me. I truly enjoyed just getting to be a part of this podcast and just participating and once again in just conversation about cases and I think as a local news reporter was one of the most difficult parts of the job, covering these issues, and to your point earlier, speaking with family and just really kind of just fully ingratiating yourself in these things that just are kind of unfathomable. But it's been really just, it's these are things that like need to be talked about. People need to know that like from domestic violence to, from relationship violence to, mishandling of guns, all these different things, like people need to know that these are things that do happen in our world, and they need to be mitigated as much as possible. And also just to spread awareness about this young girl, Emma Walker. I mean, she sounds like she was a phenomenal young woman, and she should be remembered, and she should be remembered for all of the reasons, that made her so special.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I like when I started reading more about like the ways that the people were remembering her, I was like, I need to put this in here. Like like the ending to the story cannot be young, beautiful young woman gets murdered. That cannot be the ending of the story, right?
No.
I mean, it has to be like, how are we going to remember her from this point forward and honor her and like, remember the good parts about her that like made her so special, that like really that we all could have seen at some point. So thanks for saying that, because I think that's really an important part of this podcast, that we don't just talk about, it's not just here for your entertainment. It's also here so that way you all can grow something from this, right? And take something from these, horrific cases and, maybe, touch someone's lives because of it. And that's I'm hopeful that's happening. So I hope that's what, a lot of people are taking from this too.
Well, you definitely captured her well, and that was my big takeaway. So kudos to you, and kudos to you for this, for the work you've done with this podcast. It's so great. We were talking about this, before we started recording, but just I love seeing people like turn their personal passions into projects of their own. And, I think it's not always easy to carve out the time to do so when you're working a full-time job and a rigorous job, but the fact that you're making it happen is amazing. So kudos, huge kudos to you.
Well, thank you so much for saying that, Rachel. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for coming on. And thank you all so much, too, for listening. We are going to put all of our sources on our website so you can read everything for yourself and probably come up with a few theories, too. And if you are loving this podcast and are just wondering how you can tell anyone and everyone about it, the best way to do that is to leaving us a review and a rating wherever you are listening right now. So make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we will see you next week for another episode of Crime Over Wine.
Proud member of the Podnuga Network.